Okay, so welcome to our talk tonight. Our title is Explore the Department of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. And we are very, very proud here at Iowa State to have the #1 ranked graduate program in the United States. Tonight, I just kind of mentioned, this is kind of being hosted by the College of Engineering as well as the Department of Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering. For those of you that might not be familiar or might be watching this in the future and wondering a little bit about Iowa State University, Iowa State University is in the center of the state of Iowa, which is in the center of the United States. It's a fairly agricultural area of the United States. So you'll see a little bit of some geographic pictures here to let you know. It's located just about 30 miles north of our capital, which is Des Moines, Iowa. Also, you see some nice pictures on the bottom, just to give you a sense of the fact that we have 4 full seasons here in Iowa. We have spring, we have summer, we have a beautiful fall, and we also have winter as well. So Iowa State's a great campus from its beauty standpoint, as well as has outstanding research and outstanding graduate programs. So speaking of those outstanding programs, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Steve Michelson, who is the chair of the department.
Thank you, Roger, and it's a pleasure to meet with all of you tonight to have you learn a little bit more about Ag and Biosystems Engineering in our graduate program. I think it's important to start out just with our vision as a department, and the focus of our department really is being a premier team serving agriculture, industry, and society. And when you look at where we're located in the United States and between the Mississippi and the Missouri River, and just the quality of land that we have here, we're pretty much known as an agricultural state. Over 85% of our land is used for agriculture. Although if you look at what the #1 industry is in the state of Iowa, it's manufacturing, but also that's usually related to agriculture and machinery. And so engineering and technology is a really important part of what we do. And as a department, we really focus on serving the communities or the industries of agriculture and those who are focused on living systems. If you look at the mission, we're a land-grant institution, which means we focus on teaching, or the educational part of our mission, on research, and also on extension and outreach as far as educating people outside the boundaries of our campus. And so our primary goal is to educate students, both undergraduate and graduate students, related to biological systems, industry, and agricultural technology. But also we spend quite a bit of time on research, working with industry or federal agencies or state agencies or commodity groups or even nonprofit organizations to discover and improve on technologies that really serve our stakeholders. We provide a lot of expertise. When you look at the engineering and technological expertise we provide, that's really through our outreach, as far as what we've learned through our research and how we educate those not only in our state but in the United States and really abroad on the impacts of that research. And most of our research is very applied research that can be used almost instantaneously after we complete it, and even sometimes in the midst of the research that we're doing. And then the extension part is really educational programs that go out and educate producers or folks in industry on what we've learned through research and our educational systems as well. Our department is the largest of our kind in the nation. We currently have 41 faculty that have different appointments related to teaching, research, extension, and outreach, and we do service as well. Our undergraduate numbers are almost at 700. We topped out at almost 800 a few years ago, but like many other universities across the United States, numbers have been going down. And our graduate student numbers are currently at 69. We were close to 100 at one point. But some of that is related to great opportunities for students to go directly from undergraduate degrees right into industry or other organizations. We have 4 degree programs, 2 that are in the College of Engineering, Agricultural Engineering, and Biological Systems Engineering. And we have 2 technology programs which are located in our College of Agriculture and Life Sciences, Agricultural Systems Technology, and Industrial Technology. Really, all of our undergraduate programs are very hands-on. Over 40% of our curriculum is focused on hands-on learning, and we'll talk somewhat about those types of laboratories when we look at the research and the opportunities to do hands-on learning in the graduate programs as well. And then Dr. Freeman will talk more detail about the graduate programs later as far as how to apply and how to find a major professor to work with on research. But we have two graduate degree programs within our department, and then there's also some other degree programs that you can look at, multidisciplinary outside of our department. But we have agriculture and biosystems engineering, both master's, PhD, and industrial and agricultural technology, both master's and PhD as well. We're fortunate to be in really some of the nicest facilities on campus. We just moved into Elaine Sukup Hall and the Sukup Atrium about 6 years ago. It was a $76 million project where we've raised funds through private gifts and also through the state. A lot of square footage and a lot of great features of our buildings, sustainable features like a green roof and a rainwater collection system and also groundwater collection system and then a radiant heating floor. It's a very impressive building, and for those of you that are on campus, you already know that. It's a great place for our students to learn, to hang out, and to work in teams to solve problems. But it also has state-of-the-art research and teaching facilities. And then we're fortunate to have research facilities off campus as well at our ag engineering and agronomy farms, and we have the BioCentury Research Farm, and also have access to many other facilities within the state. So this is just a picture of the outside of our building looking in. We actually have over $500,000 worth of art. You can see the floating world art that's in the center. The building that's off to the right there that's all lit up is the Biorenewables Research Laboratory, which we don't control, but we do contribute to the research that goes on in there related to biofuels, bioenergy, and biomaterial. Our facility on the left there, the brick, is where our main offices are for our faculty, grad students, and staff. And then behind the art, the Iowa map that you see there, the green and white art, the building behind that is our teaching and research laboratory facility, Elings Hall. And this is looking at the atrium, and this kind of gives you a perspective inside. And so the wood and the display off to the left is Elings Hall, where we have our faculty and grad student and staff space. And then back by the stairs is the teaching and research laboratories. And this is an example of our fluid power hydraulics laboratory. Our labs were designed to last about 100 years. And so all the electric, gas, and other utilities are up high. And so the labs are very flexible. We teach students, usually maximum about 20 students in a laboratory. And we have some courses that are both undergraduate and graduate level. So they might be senior and then a graduate level mix. And then we have many that are just graduate only courses. Some points of pride for our department, as Roger already mentioned, we're #1 by ourselves in graduate programs for biological and agricultural engineering programs across the nation. We're ranked 2nd by the U.S. News and World Report for our undergraduate programs. We have been #1. We kind of flex back and forth with another program. We have the most research expenditures of any of our peers in the nation at $14.5 million this last year, and we're on a track to increase that again this year. Those research expenditures, and that's the money we spend out the door, over 40% of that is industry research. Usually it's over 30-some% is federal funding, and the rest is state, private, and also commodity group funding. We established a couple new labs this year. We have a soil machine dynamics lab that's just outside of town at our ag engineering and agronomy farm, looking at the impacts of tillage on soil and compaction due to tires. We also established a new poultry facility where we do research related to both, in this case, chickens and turkeys, and we do a lot with control systems and waste management there. We're fortunate to have, the only department that has 2 National Academy of Engineering faculty here at Iowa State, and also with our peers, Ron Leonard, who worked for John Deere for many years and is well known, and Charles Sukup, who has his own company, or although he just retired, Sukup Manufacturing, which is located in north central Iowa, with focus on grain handling, grain storage, but we're fortunate to have these people part-time in our department. So with the time I have left, I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about our research and extension and outreach programs, but really focus more on the research. We're a very diverse department. It's often hard to pinpoint exactly what we do when people ask, like, what do you do? My research area, the first one here, is land and water resource engineering. We're also involved with animal production systems. You think of the state of Iowa, we're #1 in hog production, #1 in egg production. And so we're really actively involved in providing safe housing for these livestock animals. Biological processing, because we're #1 usually in corn production and usually close to #1 in soybean production. We're doing a lot with grain handling, grain storage, and grain processing, but also other kind of food system work. And then kind of a mainstay for us since we were started back in 1905 is the advanced machinery engineering, kind of the off-road equipment and the manufacturing systems as well. As I said, the state of Iowa, #1 industry is manufacturing. And then the last but not least is occupational safety engineering, focused on really health and safety of workers in industry across the state of Iowa and other organizations as well. So I'm just going to talk about some of the research areas that we have in each one of these. So the AMEMS is the Advanced Machinery Engineering and Manufacturing Systems research area. Really the focus here really is on off-road equipment design and testing. And so the machine design and testing, sensing, automations, we do a lot with remote controlled vehicles for sensing different things in the field, like maybe the size of a plant or the color of a plant, harvesting, vehicle integration systems, automated control systems related to steering, physical modeling. I was talking about the soil machine dynamics lab we have. We do a lot with precision agriculture and have over probably $1.5 million worth of just educational equipment working in precision agriculture, but also do a lot at the field research locations we have. Electronic systems, physical systems, applied dynamics and traction, and fluid power. And with many of these, we have hands-on laboratories, both for undergraduate and our graduate students. The animal production systems engineering really does focus on design of facilities that provides quality air for the animals, but also controls for odor. We do studies with animal behavior in these facilities and look at the animal health, environmental interactions within the facilities itself. Animals sometimes die or pass away, so how do we handle the disposal of those? Disease detection has become very important. Precision livestock farming is a term that's been around quite a while. There's also precision animal management. It's almost like precision farming for the machine systems, but really focused on animals. And then you can see some of the other ones. Manure management is, we have one of our professors here, his Twitter handle is Dr. Manure, and is the expert in manure management and treatment. And then the whole nutrient recycling aspects of the agro ecosystems. The bioprocess engineering, again, very important because of the amount of grain that we handle here in the Midwest. So food security is really important, and we not only do this here in Iowa, but we're doing it throughout the United States and do a lot of work internationally as well, helping other countries and organizations to provide a safe food source for the people in their countries. And so even the worldwide post-harvest losses is an important research area that we do. Grain quality, life cycle analysis. We have a top seed science and technology center here at Iowa State where we work on providing quality seed throughout the world. Looking at food preservation. We do have a food science department here, but we look more at the technical aspects of providing a safe food source. The risk management, renewable chemicals, nanotechnology, and talked a little bit about the post-harvest engineering as well, but all related to providing a safe quality food source and fuel. The land and water resource engineering is an area that we've been involved in for decades. Since we're in between two large rivers, the Mississippi and the Missouri, and we have a lot of water bodies, and we have so much agriculture, whether it's the cropping systems or the animal systems. Water quality is our top priority for us here in Iowa and the Midwest, both surface and groundwater quality. So we do a lot of research related to surface quality, the runoff, the subsurface drainage, best management practices for conservation, environmental monitoring. So there's a lot of sensing and controls and a lot of large data that we collect. Looking at microbial movement, we can look at pharmaceutical movements, kind of the whole fate and transport of contaminants, remote sensing, and virtual reality decision making, which is one of the areas that I work in. Occupational safety engineering research themes really focus around health and safety in agriculture, but also for manufacturing and other industries. And so it's all about helping employees and those who are in the influence of that company to make safe decisions. And so we do a lot with decision making, interactions between safety and quality of the products they have, safety management, risk analysis. We do educational aspects of the scholarship of safety education for K-12 programs and for adults as well, loss prevention, virtual reality applications, which you can see in the picture that's off to the right, where they're using virtual reality to do training for firefighters, and we've done that for other organizations as well. Farm safety, of course, we have a lot of agriculture here, so providing education to make sure that youth and adults are safe on the farm. And then the food systems safety as well. Here's my contact information. I think this presentation will be made available later, so you can go back, but I'll also put my contact information in the chat box. And so if you'd like to get a hold of me directly through email or even writing, if anybody does that anymore, you can definitely get a hold of me. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Freeman.
All right. Well, as Dr. Michelson already mentioned, we have a graduate degree program both in engineering and in technology. And we have, at the master's level, we have thesis degrees and non-thesis degrees in both options, and then we have the PhD in both options. So our master's degree for our non-thesis options are 33 credits. So the Masters of Engineering is all course-based. Our Masters of Science creative component, we do a large project at the end, which is 3 credits, but it's not the same expectations of what we would find for independent research within a thesis. And then our Masters of Science with a thesis option is the same number of credits in both degree programs. So it's 30 credits, a minimum of 22 course credits, minimum of 6 research credits. And for those of you that are quick with math, you'll notice that that doesn't add up to 30. So we give a little bit of flexibility in all of our degree programs. Our PhD programs, we try to make even more flexible. So we require a minimum of 12 research credits for the dissertation project, a minimum of 42 course credits. And again, this is from the bachelor's. So most of our PhD students have a master's degree when they start, so they're already about halfway done. And again, we provide some flexibility so people can do additional research credits, or they may take some additional course credits beyond our minimum if there's courses that are really interesting to them or they really support their research efforts. Our entrance requirements are fairly standard. Undergraduate GPA needs to be at least a 3.0 on a 4-point scale. We require the GRE scores for all of our applications. We don't have minimum GRE scores. The department feels very strongly that we want to take a holistic approach to our admissions. So the GREs are one part of what we look at, just like GPA is one part of what we look at. If you are coming from a place where English is not the native language, the university requires English proficiency. The department's requirements here are exactly the same as the university. So we approach our requirements at meeting the university minimum. To be admitted into our graduate programs in engineering, so our ABE degrees, you need a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering. Not necessarily ag engineering, but you need that engineering background to be successful in our graduate courses. And in our technology programs, it's really a bachelor's degree in some type of science-based discipline. So most of our graduates in that degree are either come from technology programs or engineering programs, but we've had a few that came from chemistry, came from environmental science. So as long as it was a science background, you're still going to have a nice fit with our degree programs here. Our materials that we require as part of an application, and again, remember that we look at this holistically. So you have to complete the ISU graduate application materials, which includes all of your academic records. So that's going to be your transcripts from every university that you have attended. And if you are applying for a PhD program or you've already attended graduate school before you come to us as a master's, those also have to be included. Again, the GRE scores, English scores. We require every applicant to write a statement of purpose, which is kind of a summary of the research interests that you have. Not that you need to tell us exactly what research you're going to do, but we need to know that the research interests that you have, we can actually provide. So that research statement and that statement of purpose helps us to identify a good match. Are we a good match for you? Are you a good match for us? And for example, we have students that will apply to our land and water resource area that are really interested in irrigation. But if that's their primary focus, Iowa State might not be the best fit. If you are interested in drainage, Iowa State might be an excellent fit. But again, we need to match our research expertise of our faculty with the research interests of our applicants. We also require a current vita or resume from every application and 3 letters of recommendation. And the letters of recommendation can come from faculty. They can also come from industry people if you have job experience that is related. Our application process, as you can see here, is all online. And starting about 2 weeks ago, Iowa State does a 2-step application process across the board. So you can provide us some basic information at no cost, and Iowa State considers that to be your pre-application. That once that material is there, we do a very quick departmental review to make sure that your interests are aligning with ours, everything looks good. If that's true, then we're going to go ahead and encourage you to complete your application. Once the application is complete, then we move on to a full departmental review. The departmental review is done by our graduate programs committee. So once we have a completed application, the committee will weigh in and we will make a recommendation to our department faculty, essentially saying that this applicant meets our educational admission requirements. And then we go to step 2. Being the #1 graduate program in the country, we have more applications than we can admit. We have more interest than our faculty can handle. So that second step is that we require applicants to identify a major professor and then talk to that major professor about funding their graduate program before we complete the admission. Okay, and then once that happens, once we have all those pieces in place and we have a good match, then you will receive the official admission documentation from the department. Here is my contact information. And again, at any time you can reach out to us at ABE Grad Info, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions related to graduate programs, related to the admissions process, or related to where your application is in the system once you start it. And again, please put additional questions in the chat and we'll be glad to answer them. And at this point, it is time for you to hear directly from our students.
All right. Hello, everyone. You want to go to the next slide, Dr. Freeman, or whoever's in charge of the slide? Perfect. All right. So to introduce myself, my name is Bailey Adams. I initially grew up on a small family farm in north central Iowa, so I have that farm background. I received my bachelor's from this department here at Iowa State in the spring of 2019, where I was involved in various leadership roles, clubs, activities, and I had 2 design engineering internships with manufacturers, specifically agricultural machinery manufacturers throughout my undergrad. Heather, you want to introduce yourself as well?
Okay. Yes. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Heather Tenbor. I am a PhD student in the Ag and Biosystems Engineering Department as well. I also got my undergrad here in the Biosystems Engineering field, and then moved into the technology side for my master's and PhD work. So I have been in this building a really long time, and I hope to stay for a lot longer.
So a little bit about my research. I was initially, as a background here, was declared as a master's student in the department, and my first thought was that I just get my master's degree and then go straight to industry. But I quickly switched to going to a straight to PhD route instead because of the benefits of where I see my career going. And more specifically on my research, at the core of what I do, I'm a data analyst and I focus on data science. And I use state-of-the-art virtual engineering capabilities to answer questions about agricultural machinery systems. Specifically, I'm focused on applying virtual engineering methodologies on really high fidelity and complex models to answer questions about ag machinery systems. And really what I do is I assist upfront with informed decision making, optimization of agricultural machines, and the engineering design process. So a little bit more specifically, right now I'm involved with the research on dynamics of self-propelled sprayer boom systems. And this is really important for the industry right now because see and spray applications are coming to the industry. How do we identify and target a weed and see a weed and accurately and precisely spray it? Kind of involved in that precision agriculture space, right? So that's sort of the core of my research, and focused on how we can improve boom stability via the chassis suspension, which is up front on the machine.
And then my area of research is more on the technology side than the engineering side, as previously mentioned. And what I'm looking at, it has more to do with like the food traceability, food security, food quality, grain quality, and sustainability practices that we kind of look at in this department. So what I'm specifically researching is I'm quantifying the amount of mixing that occurs in a grain bin as grain is moved through the storage facility in order to be able to create a more precise label of the composition of the grain as it comes out of the bin, knowing that some mixing occurs as the grain flows out because of granular behavior. So I'm quantifying the amount of mixing that occurs so that we can make a more precise label and improve traceability, improve company processes, and also improve sustainability by keeping more food in the market in the case of like a food emergency or recall situation.
Okay, both of you touched upon it within your presentation. But can you perhaps tell us a little bit more about why you chose to study at ISU, or what are some of the advantages that you've come across, especially in your graduate programs?
Yeah, absolutely. I can go first. I'd say as a background in my undergrad, specifically when I came here, I think, you know, this university and this department is the perfect intersection, obviously, for agriculture and engineering, obviously. And I absolutely loved my undergrad experience here. And when I transitioned to seeking a graduate program, I really couldn't see myself going anywhere else, right? I experienced the excellence of this department and the peer quality of all the professors here throughout my entire undergrad. And again, we are #1 ranked ABE graduate program in the U.S., right? So why leave? And another reason for me was that the research activities that I wanted to do aligned perfectly with that of a professor within the department. So that's some of my reasons.
And then I honestly chose ISU. Well, it was kind of happenstance, but I chose it partially because it was close by prior to coming to college. I'm a non-traditional student, so I was out of high school for a long time and in the workforce for 18 years before I decided to go to college. And prior to coming to Iowa State, I was working for a company that installed grain management systems into grain storage facilities in order to help increase the shelf life, but lower the cost of drying and cooling the grain. So I'd already sort of had some familiarity with the grain processing industry. And then while I was working there, decided to go to college, which was ISU was right down the road, and also had a reputation for really great engineering programs. After I got here, I discovered that I was super happy in our department and really comfortable here, really enjoying what I was doing, and just kind of kept finding things that tied me into what I was already familiar with the grain industry. And so then it was kind of easy to stay here for my master's. And then after my master's was complete, I had the opportunity to stay for the PhD and continue working on the same research, which was really exciting and kind of important for me because I had already started it and it's kind of novel. So I was excited to be able to stay and continue researching the grain quantification system.
Great. Can you maybe touch upon this last question, which has to do with graduate studies being funded? Can you tell us a little bit about your funding sources from the department, as well as what opportunities you know of that have been presented to you from outside the department?
Yeah, great question, Roger. So I'd say with the role I'm in, I've had a very unique experience with my graduate studies because my research group is, under my major professor, is supported pretty much entirely by industry-sponsored research projects. We focus more on the research scholarship in regards to not only publications, of course, but more along the lines of technology transfer, patents, and innovation are really at the core of what we do. So a lot of, I guess, applied ag machinery engineering, as Dr. Michelson mentioned earlier. And really our impact on our group and myself is sort of measured by economic development within the ag industry and jobs created within Iowa and surrounding states, and innovations licensed to corporate sponsors. So I guess where I'm going with that, part of that is that we have an extensive research collaboration with different divisions of John Deere. And overall, I think it was fiscal year 20, we brought in $3.5 million in revenue or support from John Deere, and I think it's 3.0 or right around 3.1 million for fiscal year 21. So as part of that, I am supported and funded under our sort of self-propelled sprayer project umbrella or group. And I actually helped secure a grant for fiscal year 21, which will support my activities, my research endeavors, staff members, and project costs. So I'm pretty much supported by industry-sponsored research and funded by them.
So I think maybe a unique experience is pretty common, right? So mine is also a little bit unique. My master's was partially funded by the National Institute of Standards and Technology and partially funded by me. And then once you get into the PhD side of things, it's generally I think wholly funded by your primary, your major professor. However, I started teaching for this department last fall, and so I'm funding myself somewhat by teaching technology coursework for first and second year students in the technology systems management coursework. And then also this fall, I took on another departmental position as a disciplinary writing consultant through the Center for Communication Excellence. So I'm now partially funding myself through that as well. So I'm teaching and I'm doing the writing consulting, and then, you know, working on my research and in my spare time this semester. But I'm not sure if that's going to remain the same story throughout the remainder of my PhD. I do know that some of my funding has come from one of my committee members, Dr. Herberg, chipped in some of the funding earlier this year, since I was no longer on the NIST grant, but they wanted to keep me here for the PhD. And then my major professor, Dr. Mosier, and another committee member, Dr. Bowers, both have co-written another grant that they are applying for. Oh, I think I might be frozen. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here.
You're all holding really still. Okay, sorry about that. So they're applying for another grant that they've written kind of around a little bit of what I'm doing and some of the other research that they've got going on within the Grain Lab area. And so hopefully they'll get some funding through there, and that'll help cover whatever I don't cover myself with continuing to teach and do the writing consulting.
Wow.
Sounds really complicated, but it's actually not that complicated. I think that, like, where there's a will, there's a way, and if you belong in this department, you'll know it. The department will make it seem a lot easier than it sounds.
Well, those are definitely some amazing opportunities with the department. Let me skip forward to the next set of questions. So you mentioned a little bit of these already, but could you tell us a little bit about, obviously you're in some very dynamic work groups, you're in some very dynamic research opportunities. Are there any other ways that the department or the college and university has helped advance your career?
I absolutely love this question. I thought hard about this in preparing for this question, but when I think about this in advancing my career, I think about this is all really about opportunities and experiences, right? Whether that's in the ABE department or the college and university. So from the ABE perspective in this department, I want to hint at a little bit about like the culture, because ABE, our department, it has such a renowned and excellent culture that has allowed me not only connect and develop great relationships with other graduate students, but also I have found it so easily to connect with other professors and faculty and staff within the department. And because of this has provided me with a lot of, I guess, unique opportunities within ABE over the past year in particular of my PhD program. For example, I specialize in ag machinery systems, right? And I conduct research with John Deere on that. However, I've also got the opportunity to write a research article with a grain professor or grain processing professor within the department, completely outside of my space. And that is excellent, because as a student in ABE, or I guess a researcher in ABE, graduate student, it's important not only to be, I guess, an expert in your field, but also to be generalist, right? We have a diverse group of faculty in a lot of different research areas, as was hinted earlier, right? And so this has provided me with a unique opportunity to diversify myself. Another example of this is that a professor, an ag safety professor within the department, reached out to me to guest lecture for her. So a professor completely outside of my space as well. So I've been presented with a lot of unique opportunities within the department and experiences, which has helped build my resume and vita. I think from the college university perspective, the college university is really excellent in providing opportunities for professional development and growth. In particular, I attend a lot of seminars, workshops, trainings by CELT, which is the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching, the CCE, the Center for Communication Excellence, and CERTL, the Center for the Integration of Research, Teaching, and Learning. And just to give you a specific example, I applied for a university program called the Preparing Future Faculty program, because as part of my career path, I want to be a professor or end up being a professor. And so this program established by the university has been excellent in helping me go down that path.
Handled 2 questions at once there, Bailey. Good job. Could
Future
you match
plan.
that and answer the first 2 questions for us?
Yeah. Yeah, great job articulating some of the cultural aspects of this department, Bailey. I actually am going to do a little bit of the same thing and emphasize some of what you said. I agree. I actually started my undergrad in a different department in this college and transferred over like within the first year. And this is actually where I wanted to start, but somebody talked me into giving a different one a shot. We don't need to go there, but I honestly, like the minute I walked into this department, it was like a weight lifted off of my shoulders. I just knew I was in the right place. The culture in this department, in my obviously totally unbiased opinion, is very healthy, student-centered, it's growth-minded, it's open, and it's inclusive. It's a great culture. And as I mentioned previously, I had 18 years of work experience before coming to Iowa State. And in all that time, I don't think I've ever experienced such a healthy and like lively and growth-minded culture in anywhere that I've ever been. And that includes the previous remains on department that I started in. So as far as opportunities, as Bailey mentioned, the university as a whole offers us so many opportunities that, like with the writing consultantships, shameless plug again there, from the CCE and preparing future faculty and things like that, that like if you know what you want to do, the tools are here. So all you have to do is make the time and use them. But then to bring it back home to the ABE department, I think that this department is really good at, it's close knit. It's almost a family, and they're really good at understanding what your like goals are and helping you achieve them. And I made it pretty clear a long time ago that I want to be a faculty member someday, maybe not here, but I do want to be a professor. And as such, this department being as student-centered as it is, I don't think it's an accident that I've wound up getting the teaching opportunities that I've gotten in this department. And also the writing consultantship, that's an excellent way for me to develop my mentorship skills and then also to develop my own writing skills as a potential future grant writer, in this area. So I think that this department is really, really good at recognizing your strengths and helping you stay on your path. It's been almost easy, not easy, but almost there's been very few hurdles that have felt like they were not going to be manageable. It's been very clear to me ever since I've been here that this is the place that I'm supposed to be to get this education. It's just a good fit.
Oh,
and I answered that was a 2-for-1 also because I want to be a faculty.
Yes. Yep, I heard you clearly. Heather, we'll let you start on the last question as I pull back to the full view of us, but both of you, we'd like to know what advice or suggestions you might have for some prospective students that are thinking about graduate school and thinking about Iowa State University. And we'll start with Heather this time as I stop sharing.
So advice as a potentially new graduate student is, first of all, ask lots of questions. I think sometimes we have sort of a little bit of anxiety around feeling like we should already know things, maybe, that there's no way for us really to know. And I don't think anybody ever, has ever had me ask the question and then gone, really, that's what you need to know. Everybody's like, oh, I'm glad you asked, you know, thank you for bringing that up. I'm sure other people are curious about that too. It's just, you know, we're here to learn, so we can't be expected to understand everything right off the bat. So engage with other grad students. I'm gonna do another shameless plug for our graduate student organization, and which I'm the president of this year. But it's a great group of people. We're a very like friendly and open group of students, and having that community to be able to engage with, to either just relax or chat or sometimes even vent about some of the stressors that we're all experiencing, is a really great way to help keep perspective, help understand that you're not alone, you're not isolated, you're not the only person dealing with some of these issues. If this was easy to do, a lot more people would do it. It is difficult, but you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be in the program if you didn't have the skill set to get you here. So I think when you first start out, sometimes there's a little bit of like shyness or a little bit of timidity where you're worried about being able to prove yourself. But you know, if you find yourself here, you're here for a reason, and utilize those community networks with those graduate students to help keep you at ease and realize that everyone goes through some of these phases, some of these insecurities, and some of these stressful moments. Every one of us goes through them. So we're all here to help each other through it and to be understanding. And then my final word of advice, I guess, would be start your lit review the minute you get here. Start your lit review right away. Do that first. It's the hardest part.
I'll back that one up for sure.
Very good. Go ahead, Bailey. What kind of advice do you have for our prospective students?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got 4 main pieces of advice. I think the first one, and I tell my students this all the time, but the first one is really don't ever be afraid to reach out and be proactive and take initiative when it comes to looking for opportunities, and specifically for this conversation, graduate school opportunities, right? I am not here in this role because my major professor reached out to me. I'm here because I reached out to my major professor and wanted to learn more about his research program and see if I would be a good fit. I guess that brings me to my second piece of advice. I would be to try to find the right fit or the right research area for you as early as possible, I think. I think the graduate school experience is really kind of somewhat a roller coaster no matter where you are, right? It does have its ups, it does definitely have its downs, but it'll definitely be more of a positive experience if you're in the right fit. And really, if you're in a position where you're in the type of research you like to do, then you will get the most out of the experience, I think. And then that brings me to my third piece of advice, which is, I think, the most important. I stress this a lot as well. And and that is what you get out of the graduate school experience, I think, is really based on the level of effort you put into it, right? You have the capability to take it in your hands to, take initiative and sign up for all the extra little things, right, that you don't have time for. But it just really looks better in the end and helps prepare you and professionally grow you for your career. Last piece of advice is, I think you guys hear this probably all the time anyway, but network. Super critical, and establish relationships with as many people as possible while in grad school. I think, the more the merrier, and there's always going to be a great network when you do that, people there to help you along with your experience and assist you through the difficult times. So there's my main 4 bits of advice.
Well, those were fantastic pieces of advice. Heather, you got one more? You're dying.
I would just like to emphasize Bailey's first 2. I found your professor too. I walked into her office and said, I want to be a graduate student before next semester starts. So, and we had like a nice long hour-long conversation. She just happened to get some grant money coming in for grain research, and I just happened to have background in grain. So it was a nice fit. But like he said, go look at like what some of these people are researching, see which ones are of interest to you, and then go have conversations with those people, or don't go have conversations with those people. COVID is real. Email them though, and have a WebEx meeting and talk to them about what they're researching and see if it would be a good fit for you, because you'll know it, you'll feel it, it'll seem right, and then it'll be a lot smoother. It'll seem like less work, even though you're working your tail off, because you're going to love it. You're going to enjoy what you're doing, and it's going to feel really good and fulfilling for you.
And let me chime in on that note as well, because if you're feeling lost, that's also something that is my job as the Director of Graduate Education, to give you some hint on which faculty members you should be talking to. So I can help you identify who those best fit people might be.
Okay. Well, Dr. Michelson or Dr. Freeman, we have one question in the chat here from Renuka. He would like to know what kind of industrial job opportunities are available for PhD graduates, specifically in the AM/EMS area.
Well, I will start, and then Dr. Michelson can add in as well. So if we look at our ABE PhD students as a whole, probably 60% of them end up in industry. And the opportunities vary depending on the size of the company. So if you're going to a large company, they're going to want PhD researchers. They're going to want those people that might be looking at product development, that might be looking at continuous improvement, increasing their market share. There's lots of direct research implications in all kinds of ag-related industries. And in the machinery division, all of the things that Bailey is looking at now, even though he wants to be a faculty member, the ag equipment manufacturers would love to have somebody with his skills helping them as well. So on the engineering side, there's lots of industry opportunities out there for our PhD students.
So I would agree with Dr. Freeman. It's usually the larger corporations that would hire PhDs because they usually have a research center like a John Deere, but it's a lot of the food industries do as well. And so it's we have a great resource through SciHire, which is kind of a placement job posting software we have here at Iowa State, where students can go out and look at which industries are looking for master's or PhD students. And we have some of the largest career fairs in the nation. And I'm sure Roger could talk about that, where students have the opportunity, not only as undergrads, but for master's and PhD to meet with industry and find out what those opportunities are. So you have plenty of opportunities every semester, actually. And then we also have a lot of industry that comes in directly and other organizations directly to meet with me and meet with the faculty that are trying to find, top researchers and graduate students. And we get that information out to our grad students as appropriate.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and select everyone and go ahead and unmute you. We haven't had any questions in the chat, but is anyone interested in asking a question?
I have one question, I guess. So Stephen, he talked about like an MS with a thesis and an MS with like a creative part to it.
Yes.
Could you touch on that a little more?
All right. So first, the MS creative component is an option that is available in our technology degree programs. So the creative component is a 3-credit experience, kind of like a large semester project that you might do as an undergraduate. So the creative component, you're going to take more course credits, but you still have to have kind of like a mini capstone experience where you're going to have some type of an open-ended project where you're going to do something, but it is often in our creative components not independent research. So it may be the application of research for a particular industry. So a lot of our creative components, students partner with industry to do that work.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for us?
I just thought the comments on the literature reviews was very interesting from both of our graduate students, and it's something as a faculty advisor to graduate students is usually the first thing I tell students as well, and it's something I think I learned as a graduate student, the importance of knowing what does the current research say. We used to call it the frontier of knowledge. You know, where's research at the edge? And knowing that before you start your research program, otherwise you're kind of always questioning, like, why am I doing this research? And if, you know, what is this based off of? And so you don't want to do it at the end. You really want to do it at the beginning. But I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, I would agree as well. And then let me just also add that both of our graduate student panelists hit on something that as a department we work extremely hard at, and that is finding a home and a fit for each person that we admit. And everybody is an individual, so nobody's experiences are exactly the same, and that's true even within research groups. And I think that's because the faculty as a whole are very student-centered, and everybody has different goals. Our job is to help you accomplish those goals.
I'm just going to comment again, I guess, on the lit review that Dr. Michelson brought up again, but I totally agree. I'm glad you brought us back around to that too, Dr. Freeman, because I agree that this department does a good job of making sure that you're headed in the direction that you want to be headed in. But the lit review, if you start, and it's what helps you define what you're doing. It helps you indicate where the gaps are in the research. It also helps you understand how the people that are getting papers published in the journal that you're interested in publishing in are writing. So you can communicate and learn how to communicate in the same way that they communicate as you work through putting your lit review together, and then helps you as you go through define what's been tested, what hasn't been tested, what circumstances have they been tested in, is there something you could do differently, and that helps like refine everything that you're doing and helps you put clarity to your purpose for the next 2 to 5 years, depending on how long you're going to stay.
Okay. Once again, I've unmuted all of our attendees today. So is there, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. We'd love to hear from you. Does anybody have any further questions?
I guess I have one last question.
Thank you.
Would someone, or I don't know, like point me in the direction or have a slight like explanation of what like a graduate research assistantship is?
Okay. Well, a graduate research assistantship means that the department, usually through a major professor, is paying you to get your degree, and we are paying you to do your research. So a research assistantship is normally funded from our faculty's research activities. So if they've got a grant with some particular deliverables, then they're going to hire you to help them accomplish that. So it is not full-time employment. A full-time assistantship is considered 20 hours a week. So that allows you to be a full-time student and be on an assistantship and working for the department or your major professor. And the teaching assistantships work very similar, except the time then, instead of always being on your research, your assistantship as a teaching assistant is that we're paying you to help teach our undergraduate courses, and that may or may not be related to your research.
So is this something that we do like while we're trying to do like a master's degree in science or something? Is this something we do like while we're like going through that process? Okay.
Yep. The assistantship funds your graduate activities. So unlike an undergrad, nearly every one of our full-time students is being paid to be a student.
If I may, and maybe this is just my understanding, but the way mine worked, half of my tuition was covered by my major professor, and then I was paid a stipend, like a salary, to do my research, and then the other half of my tuition I had to pay for my master's degree. Once I transitioned into PhD, all of the tuition was paid by my professor, and I was still paid that stipend, that salary. So you get paid to do your research. It's like a weekly appointment, and then if you take on teaching, then my income hasn't changed, but my allocation has, is basically the only difference.
Right, and to clarify one of the things that Heather was pointing out, a master's student on a half-time assistantship, the university requires a 50% tuition scholarship. For a PhD student, it's 100% tuition scholarship. So as a master's student, while we are not able to pay 100% tuition on federal grants, some of our industry sponsors do allow us to pay 100% tuition for master's students that they are sponsoring. But we can't guarantee it for a master's student. For a PhD student, we guarantee it regardless of assistantship type. If you're a half-time assistantship, it's 100% tuition.
Great. All right, thank you very much. Once again, if you have any further questions, let me pull up a slide here really quick. I think both Dr. Freeman and Dr. Michelson shared some pieces with you about how to keep in touch with them. There's a couple of QR codes here too. If you have any general questions about graduate programs in the College of Engineering, the admissions process, Dr. Freeman would be very happy to talk about those. You can also reach out to our general email address of engrgrad@iastate.edu. So I thank you. I thank everyone for their time tonight, and have a good evening, and we hope to see you as applicants in the near future.